Welcome back, Tracy, on this beautiful sunny day here in British Columbia to our Midpointe series on Till Death Do Us Part. And I know our conversation is not that sunny, but the concept is how can we make it sunnier for people who are really struggling? So we've chatted about how marriage represents this fairy tale, a lifetime endeavor for people, but also there are struggles and people and the struggles of wanting to break apart, the shame of wanting to break apart. What is the answer in between there? If we look at it as not, most people have figured that out. It is not that thing which you can look through rose-colored glasses, but it doesn't have to be a final death knell of a marriage either. What are some of the avenues which couples can use if they're finding that they can't make things work the way they are?
Yeah, certainly we have an idea that if it's not working, then maybe it's over and it's done and divorce. But I think we haven't brought a lot of imagination to that in at least our cultural context here, where I think you can take breaks. You can, think of it as the marriage sabbatical. I remember I picked up a book many years ago called that, and it really kind of laid out a way in which you can be intentional about taking that break or taking some distance from what has ensued for the last 5-10 years or more, 30, 50. So I think, there's these opportunities to, take some space, reflect, but be really intentional about it as well, because you're coming back into the dynamic potentially. And so you want to use it as a time to, step back and consider what's next.
Yeah, so what does break mean? Does break mean a break from cohabitation? A break from seeing each other? Like, what can a break mean?
I think that's where you bring in your creativity and imagination as a couple. Like, what would that look like? What do you need? Maybe if you have the ability to do it and the resources, maybe it means like actually moving out for a while. I remember someone I knew actually went and lived abroad for a while and did some work there. So that was some real distance that was made. But I also know folks who have done it right in their own homes. Like, this is what our new agreement will be. This is what our pace and space will look like. And they've been intentional in that way.
Are they able to maintain that when they are under the same roof?
Yeah, well, I don't think it's easy at all, that there are going to be things that reoccur because it's a pattern and we kind of get pulled into things. But I think that's where some really clear agreements can come about. And maybe like one thing you could do is even like figure out how you want to configure the day-to-day, and you do have your nights at the home or your space, or and the other person is intentional about being out of the house, or vice versa.
So we're just talking about physical space here. Like, what about the mental space? Like, if you're still, you mentioned that it is within the confines of that you are eventually coming back to the relationship, or you're trying to make sure that you're doing that. Or is the break like just an open break to say, okay, well, let's stay away, let's figure it out. And I mean, how open is the break mentally?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think there's anything pure or neat and tidy about, like, untangling from, I don't know, and should it even be a disentanglement? I think there's something about staying with what is so that you can really be present to it and reimagine it. But I also see where there's that need for enough distance just to get some perspective in a different way. But you're right, like, it's not like there's a neat disruption from the emotional tie. It's going to be there. And I think just bringing that intentionality around it then, and understanding of what then that looks like, is important.
Yeah, I think there's also like one aspect is that there are the emotional aspects. And then the other aspect is there are other aspects to a relationship, right? You own a house together, or you have a business together, you're raising the kids together. There's so many other things. You have relationships together. You have each other's mom and dads and sisters, and you may have attachments in different ways. So how do you navigate all that when you're trying to take breaks?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think, like, I know it can be really important to have very clear agreements, and you can even come up with a bit of like, what does our sabbatical agreement look like? What does our separation agreement look like? And being clear about what those interactions look like, what it looks like with family, what it looks like in different spaces where you might share those spaces. So the more clarity you can bring to it is very valuable. That said, there are going to be things that emerge that you could never have possibly thought of because your lives have been so entwined. So it's going to also then take some goodwill and bringing in those values that you feel have really guided you in a good way in the relationship and bringing them into that kind of an agreement and remembering, oh yeah, these are things that we do connect on and where we can find agreement in this space.
You obviously have to have a lot of inherent respect for each other too, to be able to follow through with agreements, which are probably not legal either. I mean, separation agreements can be legal, but if you just have a sabbatical, it perhaps doesn't have any legality to it.
Yeah, and you're right. We're talking about this in the context that people want to fully participate in this in a good way with these agreements. And it may be that you're going to have someone who really is not interested. And I mean, that might be good information too as you navigate what's next.
The other thing which a lot of couples sort of come to and come across as well is that there's some things which is between the two of them, but there's also a whole bunch of things where they feel that they're obligated to other stakeholders in their lives. So how much do you make this public, or how do you navigate this in a way which is private, but still but leaves that whole performance for others also out of it?
I mean, again, I think on a case-by-case basis, like people would know their community or the people that they are in relationship with, where, yeah, you would probably want to be discerning, like around not just vocalizing it out there. There is stigma involved with this for sure. On the other hand, maybe some transparency would really serve the couple and how people are in relationship with you. But again, it's just, I think that's where the relationship would have to discern, like, who would we tell, who do we not tell, like what is as you need to know information versus like putting it out there.
So what role can religion play, Tracy? Like marriage, the very institution of marriage is also sort of entrenched in faiths as well. Most people, not everybody, but most people have their rituals and traditions around some sort of a faith-based tradition as well. So where can religion start to give advice or give context which lets people breathe a little bit and breathe easier?
I love this question. Like, I mean, imagine faith traditions, like not even like with the pre-coupling or the premarital counseling, like if they could offer that in particular ways, in a way that really offer that reflection without just even assuming that it's going ahead. It's like, how do we wrestle with what it means to be in relationship, and how are we as a community going to support or this? I mean, not in that they have the veto on it, but wouldn't that be amazing? But even before that, I think a lot, at least I can speak from my tradition, like how amazing it would have been if from the very beginning, we're talking about how to be in relationships in a good way. I mean, I was very much taught about the subservience of a woman in a relationship, and that a woman should
submit. And that's a Christian tradition.
That's a Christian tradition. I'm from Mennonite background. And I was taught that even on my wedding day, when we asked the pastor not to talk about the woman submitting to the man, it still came forward somehow in the sermon. So, I mean, it would just be wonderful, I think, if a lot of traditions could like really meet where we are at now in our futures too. Like we're changing, and like to really companion folks as they consider like what it means to be in a relationship. And I think offering some of that mentorship and support would be phenomenal. Yeah.
Perhaps in the next session we can talk more about what role faith can play in terms of, as they said, all systems can correct themselves in some way. All systems should have some sort of a corrective measure, and how can religion vis-a-vis in relationship to marriage or divorce have that. And to our viewers, that's a wrap for today. Thanks for being in this conversation, and hope you will join us next week as well. A reminder, as usual, that this is just a conversation, and if you are in need of help, do not hesitate to seek professional help.